All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling a really big question. What does it actually mean for a country to develop? It's not just about a growing economy. We're going to talk about sustainable development with equity, a huge concept that's not only crucial for our future, but also for absolutely nailing a key question on your Class 10 exams. So, let's get into it.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll challenge the old school way of measuring progress. Then, we're going to ask who really benefits from all this development and uncover the massive, hidden role the environment plays. We'll look at two really powerful stories of what happens when we get it wrong, and then we'll build a better model for the future. And hey, make sure you stick around because at the very end, I'll give you the ultimate framework for your perfect exam answer.
For decades, we've pretty much used one main measuring stick to judge a country's progress. It's economic growth. But does a bigger economy automatically mean better lives for everyone? Let's take a closer look.
We see charts like this all the time, right? A rising GDP, which just measures the value of all the stuff a country produces, is always seen as a big win. More production, more money, more progress, right? Well, it's not quite that simple.
And this is where the problem really shows itself. A country's economy can be absolutely booming, but that one number can hide some really serious issues. Think of it like this. GDP is kind of like a country's bank account balance. But the Human Development Index, or HDI, that's more like its full health report. It doesn't just look at income, it checks up on things like education and health, giving us a much, much truer picture of how people are actually doing. So, if a rising GDP doesn't guarantee a good life for everyone, it brings up a super important question. Who is all this development actually for?
Okay, this chart is just staggering. In India, over 90%, let me say that again, 90% of the entire workforce is in what we call the unorganized sector. That means they don't have job security, benefits, or the protections that the other 10% take for granted. 90%. Just let that sink in for a second.
So, for this huge majority of people, development doesn't mean new gadgets and fancy comforts. It often means really low wages, sometimes as the source material says, pitiably so, and really poor working conditions. It means the benefits of all that economic growth are basically going to a select few, while millions are still struggling for the basic necessities of a decent life.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It gets right to the heart of the issue. Development that creates such a deep, wide inequality simply cannot be the foundation for a fair or a just society. And by the way, that phrase, just society, that is a golden keyword for your exams. Remember it. Now, let's talk about another massive piece of this puzzle, one that old-school development models almost always ignore: the environment. It's not just some pretty background for our lives, it's an active, essential partner. So the environment does two critical jobs for us. First, it's our source. It provides all the raw materials we need to make things, land, water, minerals, the whole shebang. And second, it's our sink. It absorbs and cleans up all the waste and pollution we create. Both of these functions are absolutely essential for our economy to even exist. And here is the most important part. The environment has a limit. Scientists call it its carrying capacity. If we pull resources from the source faster than they can grow back, or if we dump waste into the sink faster than it can be absorbed, we break the system. We're not just damaging the environment, we're breaking the very foundation that supports our economy and our lives.
Now, this isn't just some abstract theory. Let's look at two real-world examples from India, where this carrying capacity has been pushed right to its breaking point.
First up, let's talk about water. In about 300 districts across the country, the groundwater level has dropped by over 4 meters in just 2 decades. This isn't a small local problem. This is a full-blown, nationwide crisis of overuse.
So here's what's happening. Normally, rain recharges the groundwater, right? But with modern electric pumps, we are sucking water out way, way faster than nature can possibly put it back in. The result? The water table falls, a problem experts call stock depletion. We are literally draining our future water supply.
Our second story is a really tragic one, and it's about pesticides. The warnings were there for decades. As far back as 1962, a book called Silent Spring sounded the alarm. And yet, in Kasaragod, Kerala, a highly toxic pesticide was sprayed from helicopters over villages for 25 years. The result was a complete human and environmental catastrophe. Over 5,000 deaths and countless people, including children, left with horrible cancers and severe birth defects. So, why are these chemicals so incredibly dangerous? Well, it's because of a process called bioaccumulation. A pesticide like DDT doesn't just wash away. It gets into the water, then it's absorbed by a fish, and then a bird comes along and eats a whole bunch of those fish. The small amounts of poison build up, they accumulate inside the bird, until the dose becomes deadly. It moves right on up the food chain.
And this is the most chilling part of all. Unlike a broken machine, you can't just fix a poisoned river or reverse the damage to a child's health. This kind of environmental damage is very, very often permanent. It's irreversible. Okay, so we've seen the huge problems with our current way of doing things. It can create massive inequality and cause permanent harm to our planet. There has to be a better way, right? Well, there is.
This right here is the key definition you absolutely need to know. Sustainable development is all about finding a balance. It's about meeting our own needs today, but doing it in a way that doesn't steal from our kids and our grandkids. It's development that's built to last.
This big idea is built on two main pillars of equity, or fairness. The first is intergenerational equity, which is just a fancy way of saying we need to be fair to the generations that come after us. The second is social equity, which means being fair to everyone who's alive right now, making sure no one gets left behind. You have to get both right. It's about building a future that works for tomorrow and for everyone today.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. Now let's take all of this and put it together into a practical, simple strategy so you can write the absolute perfect answer on this topic in your exams. Here it is, your 4-step plan for getting full marks. 1. Start with that clear official definition of sustainable development. 2. Back it up with 2 powerful examples. The groundwater and pesticide stories we just covered are perfect. 3. Show you really understand the mechanics by mentioning those key concepts, the environment's source and sink functions, and its carrying capacity. And finally, step 4, wrap it up by explaining why this isn't just a textbook topic, it's absolutely essential for our collective future.
And we'll end on this question. It really captures the entire challenge we've talked about today. If our idea of progress only helps a few people now and completely damages the world for everyone later, then we really have to stop and ask ourselves, who is it all for? And what are we going to do to change it?